So I challenged myself to build a cliffside grotto as quickly as I could in Enshrouded. Finding the destination for this build was the main hassle, but once it was done, it truly felt like a hidden home, and not to mention that it's super high up off the ground, giving that really good cliffside feel. And this is how I did it. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Enshrouded content. Okay, so first off, the location that I'm looking at is way far over here in the corner at the base of Albany's summit. Now, getting here is a bit of a trek because it literally pushes you up to the edge of the early access mapping and you really can't go any further east. After some mild tribulation, we've arrived to the dig site. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is dig straight down. We don't want to be leaving the flame altar up in an open area, despite it being very flat. We want it to be the centerpiece of our build, so we start digging straight down and try to create a space for the building. Now, this really does come into play later because, as mentioned, this is where the main light of the grotto will be. Create a main little flat platform to set the altar, and now we can get to building. All right, so just a quick rundown of the materials that I used in this build, and that is mixing fancy stone block, palm wood blocks, and refined wood blocks. Again, the main idea here, and it's something that I try to have a consistent look for almost every one of my builds, is a mix of stone and wood to come together to create a beautiful combination. I'll show a bit later how my decision process went on for this, but for now we have what we need to clear some space. The foundation of this build is mostly going to be palm wood blocks for the floorboards, with accents of fancy stone blocks and refined wood blocks located all around the base of the perimeter. My first step is, of course, clear cutting. We take the construction hammer and we clear out a little decent chunk of this cliffside cave to give us some room to work with. You can do this in other ways, but honestly, I find that this is just much faster, at least in my mind, to get this done. Because I am creating only the foundation for now, I take some of the limestone that I have and I seal the hole that I dug down to get to this location. I'll adjust this a bit later, but for now, it's kind of like the idea that there's no exit, kinda. We move on to placing the floorboards, which of course is the palm wood blocks. Honestly, just layering them on top of the dirt floor works really, really well, and it provides a very nice finish for said flooring. Again, the idea here is mixing stone and wood for a beautiful combination. After setting that floor up, I switched to the fancy stone block to add some accent pillars. These are placed mainly in large locations or off over into the corners, which makes it appear that it's holding up the earth around it. This is just something that I like to do. I like having good stone pillars to symbolize like a strength that's a part of the building. That's just me. For now, a few simple pillars suffice. Moving on to the outward deck. This is actually a very simple build by just placing a few palm wood planks and it gives the deck a good and believable range. The real magic comes here when we are adding the supporting structures underneath. Using some fancy stone blocks, we create really nice supporting beams underneath the deck. Not only does this really give a believable look, this really only makes a difference if you are looking at it from a downward angle. Personally, I try to make these look as believable as possible, but that's just me. With some single block placements, you can make it look really nice. 3 support beams underneath the deck should be more than enough, and now that that's done, we got to move on to the guardrails that go around it. The first look that I was going to have was with a 2-block high of the palm wood blocks with shingles as the main connector. The only problem is that I felt like it was too thick and too low. It didn't create a gap between the floor baseboard and then where this railing was. It didn't flow well together. After this, I raised the block pillars up by 1, and I'm able to have a nice thick railing that is above the deck and still provides a fantastic view. You can use almost any single shingle blocks in this regard, as they do provide a very nice and solid railing that honestly you can use these basically anywhere. And from inside, this looks great. Originally, I was going to cover the flame altar with the limestone to see what it looked like if it was hidden. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, so I clear cut some more space to give this level a little bit more of 2 separate ideas. One, I really wanted a bedroom that had a window that was built into the mountain, looking out over the large crevasse. And then another room that is like a bathroom and more. So I clear out most of this limestone, and then I get to start placing all the floorboarding to give the room more life. I also use some limestone to rearrange what has already been shown here on these walls to make sure that there is in fact room. I toss a couple pillars here and we are good to go. And now it's time to move on to the bedroom. Now, I really like the idea of a nice and tight bedroom. Again, this whole build is only really built for me and no survivors, so I like the cozy vibe of it. My first goal here is to clear out some room to have just the right amount of believable space carved in here. I place a window, which eventually I rearrange because it's way too tight, but I move off over to the bed and just as a dummy location. I probably wanted to keep it here, but it just really needs that nice tight space, that right space up against the wall. Once I have my spot located, I use the single terrain blocks with the limestone to etch out any of the rough edges in this area because sometimes I like realism, but randomly floating blocks doesn't fit that very well. This is where I decide that I'm going to need to rearrange the window because it's weird tilt and it's just not fitting right. So I build like a small window out of the fancy stone blocks to give it more of a believable look. And then I tend the stones around it to make sure that it fits just right. I do care about both inside and outside, so I hop to a platform that I build outside to fill in the extra spaces with limestone blocks, so it really looks like it's a part of the mountain. I also add palm wood blocks on the outside to really give it a kind of like feel of realism. Like it's supposed to be there. I touch up some of the limestone surrounding this area and then we're good to go. Inside and out, the window looks great. Now comes the enclosure for the room. Because I want some privacy when I am in here, I need to set up a nice palm wood block to enclose this room. I try a couple of different designs like double walling or mixing stone throughout the wood, but I ran into the issue of the double walls eating too much room and then the stone blocks really not looking good for this fit. I consider adding a window here, but eventually I scrapped the idea. So of course I needed to get some decorations throughout the house and I start with a bench and some bathroom items. I also come over and try this railing that I got from the carpenter to see if I like it more than my big thick boy railing, but it wasn't what I wanted. I go into the bedroom and set up a two-handed weapon mount as well as a shield mount for my equipment. If this is my bedroom, then I need to store my gear, am I right? Anyway, back to the bathroom. So on the opposite side of this, I set up the bathroom decoration that I had made. However, I don't like the unevenness of the pillars, so I readjust them and then form the limestone to encase them in the walls. I take a moment to touch up the wall here and add some refined wood blocks at the baseboard of this room. This is a theme that I will continue on for the majority of this build. I place some props here in the bathroom, like a shelf and a shower, just to add a good touch of, well, realism. That's what I'm after here. And again, I really like the idea of my builds being believable. I will come back to this in a second because ADD took over and now I must continue this outline. So all around this build, I take the refined wood blocks along the edges of the room and because they really break away from the wall and it comes in handy specifically when I'm placing decorations because I want them to not get eaten by the wall, but to be also reasonable. This carries over into every room, including the bedroom. ADD takes over again and now we're back to the bathroom. Like we did with the bedroom, I use some simple palm wood blocks to create a wall to work off of, as of course the bathroom has to be somewhat hidden and private. After placing the walls, I carve out a door frame I believe is going to look very nice. I add some accents into the bathroom, which was mind-numbingly difficult to place these damn cups. I'm sorry, this was such a pain in the neck. And other items like the pantry of medicines and herbs that I keep here in the bathroom. With one last touch up, the floorboards being the refined wood blocks, and everything's looking pretty good. Because I am trying to create a believable living space here, I use a bunch of props and decorations, such as like a table, a chair, and a standing cupboard. A stool that I'll eventually use to create like a reading nook, as well as some boxes and barrels for show. And again, I really want that cozy and home-like feel for this particular house over on my cliff. I set up my armor stand, which explains why I'm naked, running around by now, but I am at home now, so it's fine. I create a bookshelf and load up this reading area with a number of books and other features that, to make it seem like I actually take the time to sit down and look at words and then hallucinate. That's basically what reading is, by the way. I place a shelf and load it with some more books, and honestly, it's how I keep my room, so I mean, it makes complete sense. All right, so no build of mine would be really complete without a custom fireplace. I love the idea of building a massive hearth into the side of my house to give it a believable feel. I use the simple clay fireplace and then I outline it with some fancy stone blocks to give it the appearance that it goes all the way up through the mountain. Now, I may decide that I want to come back to later and edit this further and actually make it appear up and out of the stone above, but for now, I rearrange the fireplace so that it squarely fits in and then it's good to go. I place a shelf on top of the mantle that I just built and place a few items to make it look really good. And seriously, this nearly made me rage quit because for whatever reason, I could not get this damn pot to stay on the shelf. And lastly, I go to enclose this whole room now that we've gotten everything basically tidied up and finished up. Just a couple of palm wood blocks, a couple of small windows that match like the one that we have in our bedroom. And then there we go. We have a nice enclosed house that is built into the side of the mountain. So let's go ahead and give it a nice tour. Now, I could come back into this build and create a hidden hatch with a ladder that leads up to the surface, but honestly, this build does exactly what I wanted it to do. A secret house into the side of the cliff. I could have this grow into a whole complete network or simply just leave it as a private quarters, but all in all, I'm very happy with this build. What are your thoughts? Tell me down in the comment section down below. If you want to learn some Enshrouded building tips that I wish I knew earlier, you can click this video here. As always, stay caffeinated, folks.